So years go by with this state of affairs, and then there's a young man named Beowulf who lives over the sea in Yachtland among the yachts, and he hears about this problem that the Danes have, and so he comes over to help Hrothgar defeat the monster. And when he finally is in front of Hrothgar, he speaks to him and he says, "Greetings to Hrothgar. I am Hygelac's kinman, one of his hall troop." Hygelac is the king of the yachts. He's saying like, "Hey, I'm one of them. They're friendly with the Danes. I'm Hygelac's kinman, one of his hall troop." And when I was younger, I had great triumphs. We hear about those later, but we won't talk about them here. But he did some great stuff. Then, news of Grendel, hard to ignore, reached me at home. Sailors brought stories of the plight you suffer in this legendary hall, how it lies deserted, empty and useless once the evening light hides itself under heaven's dome. So every elder and experienced councilman among my people supported my resolve to come here to you, King Hrothgar, because all knew of my awesome strength. So this is Beowulf introducing himself to Hrothgar, explaining why he came. So one of the things about Grendel is that everybody knows that he can't be hurt by a sword. And so Beowulf resolves to fight him without a sword. And he and the Danes have a big party. They drink into the night, and then everybody goes to bed out in the outbuildings except for Beowulf and his guys who stay in the hall. Grendel comes in. He comes up to Beowulf. His talon was raised to attack Beowulf where he lay on the bed. He was bearing in with open claw when the alert hero's comeback and arm lock forestalled him utterly. You need to imagine Grendel's got his big creepy claw hanging over Beowulf. Beowulf reaches up and grabs it. And at that time, Hygelac's kinsman, Beowulf, kept Grendel helplessly locked in a hand grip. As long as either lived, he was hateful to the other. The monster's whole body was in pain. A tremendous wound appeared on his shoulder. Grendel is so eager to get out of there, he ends up pulling his own arm off because Beowulf is holding onto it so tightly. Sinews split, and the bone lappings burst. Beowulf was granted the glory of winning. Grendel was driven under the fen banks, fatally hurt to his desolate lair, out into the wilderness outside of Heorot. His days were numbered. But of course, that's not the end of it. Grendel goes home, he's armless, his mom sees this, she's very angry. She comes back to Heorot the next night and takes back Grendel's arm, and while she's there, she grabs this other guy, Ashura, who is a very good friend of Hrothgar, and eats him too. The next morning, Beowulf and Hrothgar have a conversation where Beowulf finds out that the night went pretty terribly. And he says to Hrothgar, "Wise sir, do not grieve. It is always better to avenge dear ones than to indulge in mourning. For every one of us living in this world means waiting for our end." Death comes to everybody, basically. "Let whoever can win glory before death. When a warrior is gone, that will be his best and only bulwark. The glory that he won before death will be the best bulwark for that warrior when he is gone. So, arise, my lord, arise, Hrothgar, and let us immediately set forth on the trail of the troll dam. I guarantee you, she will not get away." So the final interesting thing that happens in part one after Beowulf, goes out and he finds Grendel's mother and he kills her and everything is made right with Hrothgar and he returns home, is that there's a whole big part where Beowulf retells the story, but he adds these new details. And one of the most interesting of these details is the whole story that he tells about Hrothgar's daughter Freyawaru, not mentioned in the first part, but mentioned here by Beowulf in his summary of what happened. Beowulf tells us that sometimes Hrothgar's daughter distributed ale to the older ranks in order of the benches. Like aristocratic women did at this time, she would walk around with a cup and give it to the favored warriors. And the fact that Hrothgar's own daughter is giving them this cup for them to drink from is a sign of their favor. Beowulf says that I heard the company call her Freyawaru as she made the rounds. Thanks, Freyawaru. She made the rounds presenting men with the gem-studded bowl. Freyawaru, the young bride-to-be, to the gracious Ingeld in her gold-trimmed attire. So she's engaged to some guy named Ingeld. Now, who's Ingeld? Well, we're told that the friend of the Shieldings, Hrothgar, favored her betrothal to Ingeld because the guardian of the kingdom sees good in it, and he hopes this woman will heal old wounds and grievous feuds. So what is going on here? Hrothgar and Ingeld have been feuding for a long time. Ingeld would kill some of Hrothgar's guys, Hrothgar would kill some of Ingeld's guys, and so on and so forth. This feud has been going on for a long time. And Hrothgar hopes that a marriage between Freyawaru and Ingeld will end that feud by bringing the two families together. They'll become in-laws and there'll no longer be conflicts between them. Beowulf, however, doesn't buy it. He says, generally the spear is prompt to retaliate when a prince is killed, no matter how admirable the bride may be. Beowulf does not believe that Ingeld's marriage to Freyawaru will end the feud. And it's interesting that he takes this time to make this aside, and we're going to discuss it more in the second lecture after this one, so I just draw it to your attention now.